Another week, another podcast.
And we haven't even changed our clothing.
Yes. Oh, well, for those listening, we have changed our clothing. We have on two people who are vastly different in age this week. Who are they, Nafi?
They are Dov Forman and Lily Ebert. Dov is Lily's grandson.
Great-grandson, I think.
Great-grandson?
Yeah.
For real, wow.
Yeah.
That is some age gap. And Lily was born in 1923. She survived the atrocities of the Holocaust, and she has an incredible story to tell. And you may have heard it, you may have seen a lot about her because she's pretty popular on social media.
Yeah, that's where I first saw her. My friend was on TikTok, and he.
Your friend was on TikTok.
Yeah.
You were on TikTok,
and she was there.
Your kids will get into school. Don't worry.
I think she's up to like almost 2 million followers on TikTok, which is just nuts. The amount of education that Dove and her are doing about Holocaust awareness and telling over her story, and she has a book, and Nachi and I get all into it in this episode. And also, we are very thankful for our sponsors this week, the JOWMA Podcast.
JOWMA. It's just fun to say.
Yeah,
so imagine how much fun it would be to listen to their podcast. Just say JOWMA 5 times fast. If you can't do it, then search them on Spotify. Enjoy this episode.
Welcome to the Meaningful People Podcast, the podcast where we talk to people who are...
Meaningful.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, here we are with two guests. I think maybe the furthest in age from any two guests that we've had on. How young are each of you?
I would like, first of all, who are you two? What is your name?
I love that.
My name is Nachi Gordon. This is Yaakov Linger, and we're here to talk to you today about what you've experienced and what you're currently doing.
And for what you want to use this?
We want to use this to really inspire people in the world. I think there's never too much and never enough Holocaust survivors getting their story out and their message out. We need to just keep putting this out there and make sure people know and they hear what happened, and there's a lot to learn from it.
Okay. Now, how you want it? Question and answers?
Yeah, we'll start off with some question answers and some stories, and it'll develop.
We're no BBC and all the other amazing big media outlets.
I understood. That I do understood.
That you know already. Okay, good.
But you want to teach really youngsters. What are you doing?
Like, which type of people listen to the podcast, I think.
So all ages listen to the podcast. We have people that are 12 years old listening to the podcast, and then we have people who are 78 listening to the podcast. It's all ages, mostly Orthodox Jews listening, but we have a few people who aren't religious and a few people who aren't even Jewish. But thank God we have so many incredible people looking to be inspired and hear everyone's story. So today it's you two.
Okay. So don't be afraid to ask questions.
Okay.
If I can, I answer.
Okay. That's good. Okay, so I'm going to refer to you as Safta and Dov, if that's okay.
Sorry?
He said, Safta, he's going to refer to you as Safta and me as Dov, if that's okay.
Okay, that is fine.
Okay, so Safta, where were you born and what was your childhood like?
I was born in Hungary, in a town what was quite a very Jewish town, and a very from Jewish upbringing I had. And I had one of the nice parents, what anybody could only dream of. So I have a nice Jewish upbringing, and we were 6 children, 4 girls and 2 boys. Up to the war, we had really a nice Jewish life.
And then
when then it got end. When Nazis invaded Hungary, then it finished the normal life.
think it's important that, when we're having this discussion, first of all, we could, introduce Dove as well. But I'd love to hear, how old each of you are and then where you currently live.
How young
Each of you are, where you currently live.
We both live in London, in Golders Green, very Jewish area in London. And I'm 17, and my great-grandmother is 97 years young, as you say. And we're both born in December.
Oh,
Very nice.
birthday month.
December what?
I'm December 6th. And Safta, when's your birthday?
29.
Oh, wow.
29 of December.
Wow. So one of you are turning 18 and one of you are turning 98. We won't say which is which. Very nice. So Safta, what was your experience like when the Germans invaded? What was it like for you?
When the Germans invaded Hungary, the truth is then already whole Europe was already in their hand. We were really the last country. So for there, they did it very quick. When they invaded from this moment, they already know what they want to do, and they did it. The aim was for them, not that I should be here today and talk you about my experience. They wanted to kill all the Jewish people in Europe. And they already succeeded a lot, because we were already the last country. What we didn't know then, because then it was the communication, not like today. So Europe was already invaded from the Nazis, and we did not know. When they but for them, they know how quick, how they could achieve their aim. And their aim was really to kill us, all of us. But luckily, the war was already near to the end, and they had not the time to achieve what they wanted.
How old were you at that time when the Germans invaded? And how many siblings did you have?
Sorry? I will. What are you saying? A bit louder, because I am a bit older than you two, and I cannot hear. So.
How old were you at the time of
20.
What's that?
I have to say it again, they couldn't hear. Your line was a bit broken.
Dovi, could you repeat, please?
Okay, Safta,
It is not so clean, the words.
And also, I'm going to repeat the other question, because there's stuff that I know you would want to say. The first question is, they asked, what happens when the Nazis invaded Hungary? So I think they want you to say about how you had to wear the yellow star, and you were put into ghettos, and what happened then. And then the other question was, how old were you then?
I answered 20. I answered this question already.
Okay,
Once.
and now, Safta, tell them what happens when the Nazis invaded Hungary.
When the Nazis invaded Hungary, they wanted very quick finish the work. So it was no problem. Very first, everyone has to wear yellow star. When we wear yellow star, then they know already who were the Jews. Then second was, after 6 o'clock in the evening, in the morning early, you cannot go out on the street. Then to shopping, you could go only shopping when the Christian population had already done the shopping. So, and every day, it came something, other difficulties. As long as they took us together, and they wanted to kill us.
We'll be right back to this episode, but first we need to tell you about an incredible podcast that we love. It's,
Meaningful People Podcast.
Yes, Meaningful People. But our second favorite podcast is the JOWMA Podcast.
Whoa, second favorite?
I don't know. I listen to a bunch of them.
Maybe. Okay.
I can say mine.
I mean,
It's really good. It's
yeah,
really good.
What's your favorite episode?
My favorite, the last one.
The last one, most recent one.
Yeah.
I think the first one was my favorite.
Oh, yeah?
Just Dr. Alisa Minkin has a way of interviewing and speaking to health professionals that are just unparalleled. And you can look through the topics and see different categories and different topics they discuss, and you go really always find things that can apply to your own life.
It's so true. Like we're living in a busy time, and I love that she just talks to the top medical physicians, doctors, whoever it is, about that specific topic, and they really delve into it. And what I also like about it, it's very up to date. It's very current. It's like, I don't want to say it's a news podcast because it's not, but they talk about, okay, if we're going through a certain struggle or medical question, they attack it. They go and they say, okay, how can we talk to the experts and figure out and help people navigate this area?
This would be like if someone heard this ad 5 years ago, they think we're nuts. They think we're crazy.
I know, right?
Like health used to not. I mean, medicine and infectious disease used to not be such a focus, but it is now, unfortunately.
It's wild, and they do a really, really incredible job at really informing everyone, and their sub-series are also great, and just a beautiful organization, and we're thrilled that they're partnering with us, and we want you to go check out. Okay, no. Actually, after this episode, not during, after this episode, please go check out the JOWMA podcast. They have over 100 episodes, so you could choose which one is the one for you and take a listen.
Or give a listen, whichever one you prefer.
Yeah, they're both good.
Yeah.
And okay, now back to the episode.
What was your experience like in the concentration camp that you were in?
The experience, you cannot explain it even, because we came with the Hungarian Jews together, that we were the last one. We never know nothing, and we lived still together as a family. So when they invaded, really, up to there, relatively speaking, we had still a normal life, you could say. But there, from one day to the other, for the next, everything changed.
Being in the camps, at any point, did you think that you get to this point where you are now today, with children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, living Jewish lives?
If we would not, in this time, you would even not dream of it. Because one thing we do know, the aim was finish all of us. So that was not the aim that we should have children and grown. That is exactly what they decided, that they wanted to make Europe, no Jewish people should be. See? That was their aim. Of course, our aim was to survive. And we did everything for that sake. But they tried to do everything to finish us.
And Savta, tell them the story of when you went back to Auschwitz with your grandchildren. Do you hear me?
When I went back to Auschwitz, normally people would not go back, but I decided that I will tell the world what really happened. And I know something, that when they saw the place where we were, it makes them much better. Then they understand it was really better where we were and what happened there. So I decided I take home a few people, quite a few. I went with my grandchildren, then with my great-grandchildren as well, show them the place. A place, why I say you have to see this place, because that was not a place from this world. That was the hell. When you arrived, you saw already, you arrived somewhere else, not in the normal world. A place, how can I describe a place where you have not where to sleep in bed, you have not home, a room, you have no food, you have nothing. The washing facility was impossible. So that was their aim, to do this to us. So, but how can I explain that? Where people can even not imagine that what it was like. You cannot explain and talk about a place where people cannot imagine, that you cannot understand what I am talking about. But how can you, that you had to, first of all, I will try explain a day, what was a day like. A day that waked up, we were working when it was till dark outside. But really, I say we were working. How could we sleep? We had no bed to sleep. We slept on wooden, how can I explain? Like a bed, say, but no mattress, no bedding, nothing. Sleep, a place where you should see one people, you see 3, 4, that when one people moved, then everybody had to move. The smell, when in a room where it would be maybe placed 70, 700, when this room closed the windows, the doors, you cannot imagine how it was like that. In this room was empty, only these wooden, say, beds. They put in 2 buckets, one with water, one for human waste. They closed doors and windows. Imagine. You could not move from this place where you were. So how can I explain this place, what you feel there? Impossible. If you were not there, you can even not imagine. And thank God that you cannot, and I wish you should never know it.
Wait, can you tell us a little more about the day? Because you started telling us about the sleeping, and then take us through the rest of the day.
The rest of the day, twice of the day, you had roll calls. What it was roll call? You have heard, you know something about roll calls was, you have to get out. If you were ill or healthy, made no difference. You have to stand in 5, as long as the Nazis did not come to count you. That was twice a day, very early in the morning and in the afternoon again. In the early, when you were sometimes we were only a few hours. Sometimes, if they came later, they 4 or 5 hours. It was raining or sunshine, it was no difference. You had to stand there where somebody was ill and could not stand, they put it there on the floor. Because the counting, that was the main aim, that the counting must be, they know how many exactly, and that must be okay. And when we stand there, then we get our breakfast. What was our breakfast? Some black water they called coffee. That was our breakfast. And with that food, we had to work up to, everybody had different work, and we had to work up to lunchtime. Lunchtime, we get some water, red, I don't know what it was, but they called it soup. That was the lunch, and then afternoon again, counting, then we get our dinner. Dinner was a little piece of bread with a smaller piece of margarine. And sometimes we get also a spoonful of marmalade. That was the food.
What? Spoonful of what?
Nothing.
Marmalades. But I think what's important to note when we were writing the book, and we were obviously doing the historical research, a lot of the survivors referenced that when it was a really, they say, lucky day, they would get a spoonful of marmalade with the bread. But this isn't kind of the, I don't know if they use the word marmalade in America.
We have no clue.
Oh, what was in marmalade? I don't know, from carrots, maybe from carrots, maybe I don't know. Nobody knows. But you know what? We were so hungry that we even don't ask for what it was made. If I would be a bit more, that was the problem, that it was so little that quite a lot of people, and that is in real, not everybody. For me, I was always very hungry, but I and my sister, we are very small eater. We survived somehow. But some people, they died really from hunger. And to die from hunger, it is terrible. But people died really from hunger. That was the food.
And marmalade, I guess in America you would call it jam, but it's not jam. But they made out of kind of...
I don't know. Not from... One thing I do know, it was not from fruit.
Right. Safta, how did you survive?
I don't know. I don't know. But you know what is the problem? People think, and that is normal, you are here, then it is possible to survive. But it is not true, because they show you only these few who survived. From thousands, a few. They don't know these who are not survived. For they don't talk. They are not here. So therefore, and that is normal. You see, I am here. I survived. So you can survive. But from the worst situation, always, even so, always a few survive. That is life. But the who don't survive, that you don't know.
Safta, how did you have the amuna, I guess, to go through it all? Like, I'm sure you had questions and you were maybe upset or sad or depressed. How did you make it through?
Because I tell you something. Even I say, I always believed that we don't know everything. And everything can also change. Luckily, I had something, but still I had hope. I have hope I will survive and have no better time. The other thing, was very important, I was with my two younger sisters, and I know that I had responsibility, and that is a very big thing, because if you have a responsibility for somebody, then it makes you stronger, and you want to survive. I know if I don't survive, my two younger sisters sure will not. So in a way, it was difficult that I had my sister with me to see that how much they suffer. But from the other side, I was the elder. I know and my family I know already is gone. So we are the last one. So I want to survive. And the other reason was also what I promised myself. If I survive, I will tell the world that something like that will not happen again. Because when we don't survive, finished. And like that also nearly finished, because in Hungary, in Poland, it was such a big Jewish communities, real Jews who kept, and they finished everything. We were the last one. So I know, and as long as you have life, you have Hoffnung, you have, what is the word in English, Hoffnung, you have tomorrow.
Hope, maybe? Hope?
Hope.
So there's a great transition to talk about your book, Lily's Promise. But right before we do that, I want to ask you, did your sisters survive with you?
Mine too. When we arrived, they took my mother, my younger brother and sister to the crematorium. They killed them when we arrived. So I, with my two younger sisters, survived.
Wow.
Yes. Luckily, I looked after them, because I know they are the only one who I still have from the family. And I am the eldest, and I took responsibility that I have to look after them.
And Safta, maybe you want to tell them the amazing story of when Renee was selected in the selection and you managed to save her.
Yeah, that is always, all the time, because one thing was sure there, the crematorium, that was important for them, that has to work day and night. All the time when came new people, then they take from the people always the weak people. Then the crematorium had what to do, and they took them straight to the crematorium. So the crematorium could work. But when when we arrived, we were nearly the last people for Europe. So not a lot new people came from whom they could choose. So what they did all the time, that was the worst thing really, selections. Selections was for two reasons. Selection was taking to the crematorium that they should have worked, or selection, in Germany the men were soldiers, and they needed people to work in factories in different organizations. So who was a bit stronger, they were selected to work. That was all the time going on. But the question was not for that. You asked really how I stayed alive there, yeah?
No, how you saved to the René?
After my question
You,
was
how
you
my
saved the
René, special only was the truth is, that it was even not, I don't know, Hashem help me, because we were standing there in 5. I was always in the middle. I let one of the sisters before me, one behind me, that I could give always one hand when I want to take them. So one day really, they selected my older siblings, René. She was already getting out from where we were standing to go with them. I know then I know already what happens to these people who was selected for, that they want to take to the crematorium. I decided no, that I will not let. I took her hand, and I said, come. I don't know how I succeeded, and quick I marched away with her. Luckily, thank God, I survived. But it could have happened also that they would say, you come also. And then my third sister would also not survive. But luckily, I don't know how it happened. Hashem, it was beshert, how you say it, that we should stay alive. And thank God, after more than 70 years, I can tell you the story. And from that, you can learn something also. You should have also hope. Never, ever, like the world situation, also don't lose the hope. As long as you have life, have hope.
Transitioning to the book, Lily's Promise. Many people who survive the Holocaust decide to sort of stay quiet and not talk about it and just, move on with life. But you've decided to publicize and speak about your story in many different ways. So we just speak to the importance for you in telling your story to the world. And in addition to that, why the title is Lily's Promise.
You are right. And I could also quite a few years not to talk about it. But then I thought I survived. It is not enough. If the world doesn't know what can happen, then it will repeat itself. I must tell the world that how easily can it happen. And it doesn't happen with killing, no. It begins only with words. The Jews are not worthwhile to live here. They are like dogs, so I don't know what the propaganda against us. We are not humans, because they don't kill humans, they kill undermensch. We were not like these good Nazis who kill people, no. And that war, And I promised myself, I will tell the world that they should learn, because if nobody speaks about it and people don't know, nobody knows. You can do, and it can repeat itself easily. So you must, even today, the trouble is, it is already more than 70 years, and we saw anti-Semitism is here. And we must note also something against it now, in the beginning, because maybe in the beginning you can do something. When it is a bit later, too late.
And you definitely told the world, because I checked up right before, you and Dove have 1.5 million followers on TikTok, and you're verified. And your book is a bestseller. You've been interviewed by the top TV stations in the world. So you're definitely getting out there and letting people know what happened.
Thank God. Because like that, it was not easy. It was very difficult. Because it would have been so easy. Leave it, don't talk about it. Quite a few people choose that. Because it was not easy to not only go through this terrible time, even talk about it. But I know if I close my mouth, it is easier for me. But I have nothing achieved. And I know something else. If I survived, I must have a reason. Everything has in life a reason. And I thought that this is the reason I should talk about it. That people should know about it, that it should not happen.
This is a question for Dove. So Dove, take us through your process of how you helped your grandmother, great-grandmother, say over her story and let the world know about it.
I will, but I just want to just touch on her previous point of how she says everything in life had a reason, and only last January my great-grandmother recovered from COVID. She had it really bad, and we were midway through writing the book, which I'm going to get on later, and she said to me, I have to get better, I have to finish the book, because that's one of my purposes in life, and that's why I survived. And I think that sums her up as a person, always understanding that there's obviously a greater purpose and a greater reason. We might not always understand what happens in life and why it happens, but that there's someone that controls the world, and there's someone that makes that decision, and we all have a purpose, and we need to find that, and then I guess work on it and make it our mission forever. And I guess I kind of come into this last year, or now a year and a half ago, during the first COVID lockdown in the UK, because I saw that my great-grandmother was unable to go to schools and universities, colleges, workplaces to share her story, as she has done for many years, over 20, 30 years. As she said, she's taken back her grandchildren to the camps, her daughters, and many other people. And so I saw that she was incredibly sad, staying at home, not being able to go out. She's incredibly lively, loves going on walks and meeting new people. And so I decided I would kind of try and organise as many talks as possible on Zoom, and we did one with my history teacher. And I realised it was really the first time that I had heard her story from the beginning to the end in detail. And it really struck me, and I really wanted to learn more. And so I asked her to show me some things that I could learn from. And one of those things was a banknote, which an American liberator had given to her upon liberation from the death march. And on this banknote, he had written 10 words of hope. The start to a new life, good luck and happiness. And he hadn't written his name, but he wrote his position in the army. He was a Jewish soldier, and he wrote that he was the assistant chaplain Shafter. And I posted this note on Twitter, and within 8 hours, it has already received, I think, 1.5 million views. And we were able to track down the soldier. And we had a Zoom call with the family, and that's where this all started. We were put on over 80 news channels in over 30 different countries. It was all over the press, and it was just an incredible story. And I think it really touched the heart of not only the UK, but the whole world during such a tough and difficult time. And it also showed people the kindness that the liberators showed the survivors, and how they helped the survivors get back to reality and normal life.
That's really nice.
And then I guess my guess is that it wasn't your great grandmother's decision to say, hey, let's open up a TikTok account. It may have come from you.
You're assuming, you never know.
So I guess take us to that, and just just your context, like for people who don't know. Yes, you guys have 1.5 million followers on TikTok, but you have some videos that have over 10 million views, some over 20 million views, and we think of the grand scheme of the Holocaust and what took place, and now to be here today where you're spreading your great grandmother's message to over 20 million people, it's like crazy to think about.
100%. And my great grandmother often says that when she was standing at the gates of Auschwitz again, when she went back with her grandparents, that was when she realized that she won, and that the Jewish people won, the Nazis didn't. And I think, again, with the TikTok, if only they would see the impact that we're making on the world and the amount of people that are learning. I think it's just absolutely incredible the impact we're having. And so, as I said, my great-grandmother had COVID last January, and we were already in the process of writing this book, which came because of all the Twitter success and the amount of people that wanted to learn about my great-grandmother's story. And she caught COVID, and we were halfway through the book, and she said to me, right, I've got to get better, I've got to finish this book. And once she did get better, we were thinking, what can we do next? She always wants to do that thing bigger. And so I said, there's TikTok, it's trending at the moment, it's getting really big. Let's set up a TikTok account, because if people dancing can go viral, we can too. And the first video we put out was me and my great-grandmother in the snow just after she had survived Corona. It was snowing in the UK. And we went outside and it did really well. People really liked the bonds between us. But also the fact that a 97-year-old is here, not only surviving the Holocaust, but also COVID and Auschwitz and so many different things in her life with her great-grandson. And people really liked that. And I think the first post got 400,000 views. And then we decided, let's carry this on and answer as many questions as we can about the Holocaust. And every day, thousands of people send in questions not only about the Holocaust, but about Judaism and family and her life as a whole, before the war, after the war, during the Holocaust. Emunah, does she still believe in God, is one we often get. And yes, she does. And so we've just carried on posting every day. And as you say, our most viewed video is above 20 million views. And yeah, it's just amazing to have such a big platform where every day we can educate millions of people about Judaism, anti-Semitism, and the Holocaust.
With all the great, exposure that you're giving to what happened, I'm sure there's a bunch of negative feedback that you're getting, unfortunately, maybe anti-Semitism and maybe hate and, unfortunately, Holocaust denial. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yes, so
that is what I want to say. The technique, we can use it for good, but at the same time for bad as well. So we can teach people and show people the way how you should behave. In the same time, we can also, it can be used against us as well. So the question is not what we have, how we use it. And we must use what we have for the good. That must be our aim. Because everything in the world, nothing is absolute. The question is how you use it. Or what it is the most important for humans. What is it? Our brain. And with brain, what we can do. We can help for people. What we build, the whole world, with brain. And with the same brain, we also destroy these wars, this killing. We worked out these Nazis with their brain, how to kill quick a lot of people. So we must know what we have. Hashem gave us to use it for good thing. Because everything, we say everything, we can choose. And we must choose the good way, the right way, how we want to live our life. And that is what we must learn from everything. And the other thing is never, ever lose your emunah and the hope. because today can be very bad. We went through, so never a way. We will never a way to have a normal day. Thank God I am here 70, 80 years later, and I can tell the world what happened, and they should choose the right way to live.
And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, think that anti-Semitism, especially in the UK, a lot of people think that anti-Semitism went away with the Holocaust. Unfortunately, it didn't. In the UK this year, anti-Semitism rose 560%. And I think those statistics, when you look at them, are just, it's so saddening. But as you say, I think people always despise the fact that a 17-year-old young Jewish person and a 97-year-old Holocaust survivor have a platform to be able to share those stories. And we often get a lot of anti-Semitism in certain times. When there was the recent conflict in Israel last year around Shavuot, we got a lot of anti-Semitism, a lot of anti-Semitic comments just on posts wishing people Shabbat Shalom and to have a nice weekend. We got, I think it was 30,000 hate comments. And it really often baffles me that someone would want to send that to a Holocaust survivor who's already been through so much in their life. But I take my strength from my great-grandmother, because I showed her, I didn't show her all of the comments, obviously, but I said to her, what should we do? We've got all of these anti-Semitic comments. Should we shut down the account? Should we carry on? Should we take a break? And she said to me, definitely not. Because firstly, this only emphasizes the need to do what we're doing on social media, because we really are one of the few Jewish people in the world that have such an influence, especially on TikTok, where there's such rampant anti-Semitism. And she said to me, you just ignore these people and you carry on, and that's how you win. You don't stop your account and let them win, because that's exactly what they want. That's their mission. And we carried on posting, and they eventually went away. And of course, we carry on getting anti-Semitism, but in much smaller numbers. And we won't be defeated. We'll carry on educating. We'll carry on educating about the Holocaust, modern-day anti-Semitism, Judaism. It's Hanukkah coming up next week, and I guess that's one of the messages, being a light in the darkness. And as the Holocaust survivors are definitely the light in the darkness. And hopefully the Jewish people, we should be a light onto the other nations and onto the world. And we, as my great-grandmother said, we should use social media in a positive way to show that it can be used in a nice way. And I think one message which we often try to spread is, I think, what Hillel said, is treat others how you want to be treated. And especially on social media, when I receive these type of messages, I think if only someone would think before they send this message, would I want to wake up and this be the first message I read in the day? Probably not. So why would they send it? And that's often what I think before I also send a message. And I think that's how we should all kind of live our lives, and be careful about what we say to others, because you never know the effect that it can have.
Wow. Safta, aren't you proud of Dov? He sounds like he's 37 years old and he's just 17. Don't you get nachas?
Yes, I am very proud of him. And I see not every, because I was really worried, and I'm still worried, but luckily I am sure he is not the only one for young people, because we cannot kid ourselves. We will not be here forever. We need you, the young people, take it over and show them, because anti-Semitism always was, always will be. It is anti-Semitism. We saw, if it doesn't go, is gone now, what we went through, a world what was not true, what they did. And the anti-Semitism is still here. So it will not, we should not kid ourselves. Anti-Semitism will go with us. But we must know how to behave against it. Teach the people, be nice human being, and try to keep the world a better place.
Oh, man. Safta, I'm going to end off with a question that I don't think the BBC asked you or any news outlet asked you. So are you ready for the question?
Sorry, I have not understood. Could you repeat?
I'm going to ask you a question that no one asked you yet. The BBC, no, none of them. Could you give Nachi and myself and all our listeners a bracha?
Yeah, that you, new generation, all of you, should not know something about what I thought about you, about this difficult time, and all your life should you have a nice, peaceful Jewish life and could build a nice new generation, that it should get forward. That is mine bracha to the whole world.
Thank you.
Amen.
Amen. Well,
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us from across the world. And I'm very hopeful, and I think that this is going to inspire a lot of people.
it will. And Dov, is there anything that you think we may have missed that you want to say, or?
Not off the top of my head. And Safta, is there any other things you might want to say?
If you want to ask some special question, don't be afraid.
One final question I have, which is sort of towards the end part, is Safta, 20 million people. That's a lot of people that have watched some of your stuff. What does that make you feel? You know, being part of such a grand loss that you lived in the earlier part of your life, but now you're influencing and inspiring and educating over 20 million people. Do you process that?
Fantastic, because that was always my aim. I told in the beginning what I wanted to achieve. That is the first thing. As long as people don't know about something, you cannot do anything against it. But now that they open the eye and say, and something else, when you saw something bad happens, don't close your eyes. Change it in first moment, maybe you can. But never leave it, tomorrow I have time, I will. When it gets worse, too late. That happened especially with anti-Semitism, that happened. That thing, they say a pervert, so what? So they are against us with words. But the truth is, everything, all the killings begin only with words. That is the beginning. And then it goes further. And when they see you can do it, they do it. They goes it further. So when you have in everything, in first moment, when you saw something is not right, or don't say, it is not, I am not involved. It is not true. The whole world is one town, and we people, we are involved, and we should learn from it, and do something when we can do. Be a doer and not a speaker.
Oh man, thank you so much.
So, Nu, how was that episode?
That was really good. I mean,
I was asking them though.
I'm speaking for other behalf.
I was asking them. We'll wait.
It's always challenging to do interviews over Zoom or over the computer, but it's just so important to have these Holocaust survivors tell over their stories, and you know, I don't think we're gonna be in England anytime soon, and I don't know if she'll be in America, so we jumped on our opportunity to sit down with her. Also though, she's popular, she's busy, she's going on TV shows.
She was on CBS. And she was on CBS Good Morning Show 2 weeks ago.
She's everywhere. And by the way, I saw some on Twitter, I saw it going around. I'm like, we already interviewed her. Okay, we need to get this episode out.
So here we are. We're getting it out, and
Yeah.
I think just Hitler's burning in hell,
Yes.
and he probably would never have imagined that this is us now, the Jewish people. One of the survivors of what he tried to do is spreading her message to. She's 2 million followers, but the amount of people that watch the content sometimes is significantly more. The videos with over 10 million views. So take that.
Yeah, it's really
We ain't
crazy.
going anywhere.
And if in the show notes, we're going to link her book. If you haven't read it, totally go read it. It's a must read, and check out Lily and Dove on social media and check out all their videos and all the inspiration. And again, thank you to JOWMA for sponsoring this episode. And please go check out their podcast wherever you hear your podcasts. And get ready for next week. Now, tell them who we're going to have next week.
Let's just say it's BBB.
Yes.
And it's not the Big Baller brand.
Yes.
So that's a hint for you.
I feel like half our audience would have know exactly who we're talking about, and half would be like, I have no clue who they're talking about.
Half the audience have no idea what I just said with Big Baller brand either.
I don't either.
Including Yaakov.
Is it a sports thing?
Super niche. Not even super niche. Yeah, it's a sports. It's a sports
thing.
reference.
Got it.
All
Okay.
right. So just tune in next week for our guest, Bar Bender.
Someone gave me a catchphrase, but I forgot it. So we'll have to get
I'm
it.
sure it was incredible. If you forgot it.
It was good. It was actually good.
It was our new catchphrase is go ahead and follow us on Instagram.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, go for it. See you.